Good morning, everyone. This is our halfway through the year public safety briefing. As you know, I give these quarterly, but today we're going to focus on the first 6 months of the year, which some of you have been looking at already, the first 6 months. I'm joined here today. I have with us our fire chief, Stefano Napolitano, my corporation counsel, city's corporation counsel, Patrick Beath, as well as my advisor on violence prevention and director of the Office of Violence Prevention, Zekwe Tukes, Police Chief David Smith, as well as Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Recreation and Human Services, Sarah Fletcher. As we enter July, as you know, we have crossed the halfway point of the calendar year. So today I wanted to focus on the data of the first half of the year. So that's January through June of 2026. And assess how we are doing with driving violent crime down. As you know, I've said that I want to get to a functional zero of firearm-related violence, particularly shootings. And we are making great progress there. If you look at the open data portal on the city's website through the Rochester Police Department, you will see that we have made tremendous progress in terms of driving down gun violence. But again, I want to reiterate, as I always say, that I am extremely gratified, but of course not satisfied, because any number of shootings is too many. And when I have the occasion to talk to family members, be they individuals that have had loved ones die of homicides or are nursing their loved ones back to health after being shot and they survived, it's important to remember that those gunshots that a person endures might be classified in the media or at the hospital as non-life threatening, but I can tell you that they are life altering. In fact, just yesterday, I talked to a parent whose child was shot, who's lucky to be alive, 1 inch to the right, and they could have been gone, but they were saved because of a tourniquet. So although we have had many people survive shootings, it's still important to note that it is a life-altering event. So we're moving in the right direction. In the first 6 months of 2026, January through June, we have had 59 shooting victims. And this is the first time since 2011, nearly 15 years ago, that we have had fewer than 60 people struck by gunfire in the first 6 months of the year. Also this year, we have recorded for the first 6 months some of the lowest homicide rates that we have seen in a generation, particularly when you consider that in 2021, during the first 6 months of the year, you had almost 42 people killed in Rochester. And right now at this point, obviously these numbers can and will change. For the first 6 months of the year, we have 6 people murdered. Still 6 too many, but again, trending in the right direction. And in fact, as I looked at data from year over year, in March and April of this year, we recorded the lowest number of shootings for those months in almost 25 years. And in February, we had the fewest shooting totals for that month since 2012. Now, as I said, I'm gratified but not satisfied. On the other hand, as we continue to reach historic levels of shootings because of the hard work that we are enduring on a daily basis, it's a tremendous improvement, especially when you look at where we were just 4 years ago. But on the other hand, I want to say that in this new quarter, this new month, in July, when we had 8 people ending up in local emergency rooms, it shows that this work is constantly under attack, that we cannot stop. And just let me say something for the media, because you often read, someone will say, oh, you know, we have driven down violent crime to historic levels, they're low where they are, and they say, but we don't know why. Let me be very clear, we know why. We know why, because we have a targeted approach, number one, to individuals that carry guns. We have a cross-functional team of people at every level of government that is working to drive down violent crime. That we are looking at particularly data, mapping data, and seeing where violent crime is happening and trying to prevent it also before it starts. So this notion of we don't know why these numbers are going down is nonsense. We know absolutely why they're going down. They're going down because you have a concerted effort day in and day out, where people in this building, as well as at the public safety building, and as well at 57 St. Paul, that eat, drink, and sleep public safety. That's why you put a focus on it. You put it out, you put a laser on it. So it's not some surprise that we see violent crime going down. If it was not going down, it would mean that we were not executing our plans that we deal with day in and day out. Every week, I am surrounded by a team of people in which we look at every single issue as it relates to public safety in Rochester. And even if I'm on vacation, those meetings still take place. That data is still reviewed. So this is not some accident. This is not some happenstance. This is not some magic wand that elected officials have. And I will tell you that if other cities take their eyes off of these challenges, they will continue to fester. So with that, what we saw on July 4th is a reminder of, number one, why I have to keep the gun violence emergency, but number two, as to why we have to go a step further to preventing these unnecessary incidences from happening on a regular basis. So first off, again, the gun violence state of emergency will remain in effect because we still have too many people shot. I was on the phone with the mayor of a European country, and they still cannot believe the levels of gun violence that we have in America. They just can't believe it. I mean, we have places in the world where they can go months and years without a shooting. But unfortunately, in our community and in our country, we have accepted even low levels of gun violence as okay, and particularly in urban areas, which really bugs me, which really offends me, that people are saying, oh, you're doing great. I am doing great. We are doing great, but any level of gun violence is not acceptable, even when it's at historic lows. And we are at historic lows. But one of the challenges that we are seeing is our large gatherings. Large gatherings happening at 11, 12 o'clock. And I'll give you a prime example. After the fireworks on July 4th were over on July 4th at 10:30. The rockets' red glare were done bursting in the air. Those fireworks were over. We were done. 10:30. The 8 shootings that happened didn't happen on July 4th. They happened on July 5th at almost 1 a.m. because we had individuals who thought that they could turn our public sidewalks into their own personal party. And this is not just unique to the July 5th incident. It is also unique because you only need to go to these websites that show the chaos and mayhem that happens after clubs are closed. Last call at some clubs are around 1:30. But yet you see videos of people taking over our streets and brawling at 2:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, requiring a response of all police sections and our partners. And that has to end. That has to end. Because the events of July remind us that these venues of violence aren't always just in private locations. They're also happening on our streets. And we cannot have it. They often happen during overnight hours, as I said, and they are connected to just large and unruly crowds. And I know that there are those that thought, and I had to do this research because there were many that thought that it was all driven by young people. And there are some young people in those crowds. But one of the things that we pulled out as I started doing research about how we could stop these unruly crowds from forming after events are over and they should be at home, is that some of these individuals that were caught with firearms, that were fighting, men and women, some of them are in their 30s. Some of them are in their 20s and 30s. And I had young people come up to me and say, Mayor, you know, you're singling out young people, but it's not just us. So police department, our data unit pulled some of this unit, and the Corporation Council will talk about this. And one of the things that we realized is some of the people wreaking havoc in our city, some are kids, but the vast majority of them are adults. Some of them have kids themselves. And we have body cam footage and video footage of women and men fighting on corners, taking over street corners and they're 20 and 30 years old. So as I look to amend our gun violence state of emergency, I'm going to start today, effective today. We are declaring it is unlawful for groups 10 or more to gather in public spaces between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. without a permit. Obviously, there are exceptions to that. If you're getting out of an event and you're getting ready to leave and there's people there, that's fine. But the day of people at night, after everything is over, when you have alcohol mixed in and large crowds mixed in and beefs that they have on social media or something that happened in the street or in a club before, that is a toxic mix that has created a dangerous mix for our neighborhoods, for our police officers, for our larger community people, and that has to end. So we are going to stop these large overnight gatherings. There is no reason in our community at 2:30 to have 50, 60 people playing loud music, drinking, violating the open container law, but more importantly, disturbing their neighbors and creating violent situations. And we've seen this. We've seen this in all across the city. All across the city, and the chief can speak to this. And it's a shame that this is something that we have to do for now, but it's something that must be done because the consequences are too dire. When I'm talking to a mother whose innocent child is almost killed because she's simply walking to her car, and we have individuals that break out into a fight at 12:30, and they almost get their aorta pierced and bleed to death, it's something that we just can't have. We know that not only do these crowd-related shootings put their lives of those who are engaged in the violence at risk, it puts innocent bystanders at risk. And I think the community is calling for us to do something about it. Lives are at stake, and I will use every tool in my disposal to protect those lives. Now, I want to make no mistake about it. Rochester is getting safer. The numbers bear that out. Now, how people feel, that's something different altogether. But when you look at 2021, and you had 42 homicides in the first 6 months, and you look at 2026 and you have 6 homicides in the first 6 months and 1 only due to a firearm, it means that we are working at this. But every day, unfortunately, even last night, in the last 24 hours, Chief, I think we took 3 illegal guns off the street in a less than a 24-hour period last night. And one of the people who we took a gun from, it was their second time caught with an illegal gun. This is what we're fighting against. This is the challenge that we are up against in our community. And it can't be done alone by government. I call on family members and community members to please, number one, parents, get control of your children. Get help if you need it. But then it's not just the children that needs control of. Friends, family, when you're out at night, go home. Go home after the club closes. Go home after the event is over, and stop using our public areas as gathering spots. I believe that functional zero firearm violence is within reach, and we can reach functional zero if we sustain these declines that I just outlined here. We know that we have to do everything we can to influence human behavior, to get people to make a different choice, to get people to see that it is not wise to fight in public spaces. But sometimes we have to do what we can to influence those policies and behavior. And that is why we are adding this layer to the gun violence emergency. And we'll see how it works out. These are just tools. There are no magic wands. These are just tools. But as I have shown over the last 4 years, every tool that I have used has led to a reduction of violence in the city across all categories. And I will use every single tool I can to keep Rochesterians safe, which is my #1 job. Public safety is a mayor's #1 priority. It's hard work, it's not easy, but it is something that I will not back down from. With that, I'm gonna have the Corporation Council touch briefly and define this, this new policy, and then I'll turn it over to our police chief, and then I will take on-topic questions. Patrick.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everybody. I want to talk briefly just about the emergency proclamation, gun violence emergency proclamation, and what we continue to do with it and the new things that we're doing with it. So as you all know, the proclamation has been in effect for some time now, and we use that effectively to shut down venues of violence when they become violent, when we see gunfire, when we see people getting shot. We've continued to do that during 2026. Through the first half of the year, we've used it to close 10 places that violence has broken out. A couple of examples of those places where we've had, because of large crowds, multiple victims. On March 3rd, there was a shooting at 4302 Lake. That was a big party that had spilled out onto the street, over 100 people in attendance. Gunfire broke out, casings of multiple firearms were found at the scene, 2 people were shot. Fast forward to July 12th, 111 Harris Street, same thing. Giant party, spills out to the street, gunfire erupts, there's a trail of blood in front of the home, 3 people are shot. This sort of thing can't happen. And we use the gun violence emergency to shut down those individual locations. But as the mayor said, and as we saw on July 5th, sometimes this breaks out in the public. What do we do in that situation? 8 victims that night. How do we stop that? You stop those large overnight gatherings. And when we took a look at who's the victims and perpetrators in these crimes involving large groups of people overnight, we saw that it wasn't just juveniles. It's people of all ages. And so if we're gonna reduce not just the number of shootings, which we're doing effectively, but also the number of victims, we need to make sure that people aren't put in a place where they can become innocent victims of this gunfire. And so we're using the gun violence proclamation to establish this gathering ban overnight. Groups of 10 or more may not gather together between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. Now, there are a few exceptions, and that's for legitimate First Amendment activity. If folks are out there demonstrating, protesting, assembling, they can do that. The limitation won't apply. If folks are at a properly permitted event, there's a block party, there's a city event that goes into those hours, they can be out there because we know that's going to be safe. We've permitted it. There's going to be security. There's going to be a process, right? If folks are out in a group because of an employment purpose, bona fide employment purpose, that's fine. They won't be subject to the ban. And if there's an emergency, right? If a building is evacuated and we have a group of people outside, obviously they won't be subject to the ban. And those exceptions will be specifically called out in the emergency order. But we think that this is necessary to stop these large gatherings that get out of control, result in gunfire and multiple victims. Mayor.
Thank you. And one of the best ways to see some of what we're talking about, all you gotta do is look on the internet, because you see the videos of the chaos, including one of your stations is right on the street. You can go look at your surveillance video and see the craziness that took place in a public space that is supposed to belong to everybody. Supposed to belong to everybody. Our shootings could have been even lower if we didn't have this nonsense that happened on July 4th going into July 5th. and some of these other events that the Corporation Council mentioned. I want to bring up the police chief to talk about crime overall for the first 6 months. Again, this is really a good news press conference, it's supposed to be, but it's also a press conference about how we sustain this. Because in the words of Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately? And that's what we're interested in. And that's what the community asked me. What have you done for me lately? That's the past 6 months. 6 months is over. Now I got to look forward for the rest of the summer, where it's warm and anything can happen. We have to look at how we're going to move forward. So with that, I want to bring it to our police chief to say a few words and talk about the numbers for the first 6 months of the year and items going forward. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I start, I would just note the suspect that was arrested last night for the second time with a firearm that the mayor mentioned earlier was arrested around 9:30 p.m. and ROI by the judge within about 4 hours. Oh, Captain Bellows waving me off. Too late, I said it, Captain. Am I inaccurate? No, I know I can't name a judge. Captain Bellows is going to have a little bit more on that later this afternoon for you. So as the mayor said, I'm going to go over a few numbers, but really what I want to talk about is what the police department's doing moving forward to continue to make progress. So again, for the first 6 months of 2026, we've seen a historic decrease in gun violence and violent crime. February had 5 shooting victims, which was the lowest since February of 2012. May had 7 victims, the lowest since May of 2000. March had 3 shooting victims, the lowest of any month in the last 25 years. Now, as we've mentioned, unfortunately, this July has not been going as well. But again, our investigation continues. We will be making arrests. We have significant leads. We made some arrests that night, and we will continue to. I'd also like to note that besides the dramatic decrease in homicides committed, our major crime section continues to have a solvability rate in the 90%, which is again one of the leading in the nation for homicides unit as far as closures. What are we doing moving forward? We have to always keep our feet moving, like the mayor said, what have you done for me lately? So although we've developed a lot of programs in the past 4 years, we're not going to stop and rely on those. So what we're working on now, just some of the highlights. We are finalizing plans to join the Safe Streets Task Force, which is a task force developed by the FBI. It's not a new thing. It's been around for a while, but we haven't participated in a while. We're looking at rejoining that with a lot of our local partners, which is very exciting. We're also continuing to work with the Law Department, Corporation Council, and the City Administration on proactive measures such as the new gathering ban, which we will be enforcing to keep group violence down. I also have to say, because it's coming up next week, we do have a robust plan for the upcoming Puerto Rican Festival. I would be remiss if I did not, again, reiterate, the festival, there's never any problems. It's a great festival. But unfortunately, after it closes, we all know certain areas of the city are marred with violence and riotous behavior. So we'll have more next week. We'll talk about it as far as the resources that are going to be deployed. I will tell you now, everyone in the RPD is going to be working that day. Even everyone on their day off has been ordered in. But again, more from that next week. Also, what we're working on, our non-fatal shooting unit, which we began as a pilot program, which has been extremely successful. We're going to continue that success by making this a full-time unit. We're in the process of that now. I actually had some meetings. So again, the non-fatal shooting unit is the unit that investigates every shooting as if it were a homicide. We went from starting with about a 14% closure rate in non-fatal shootings to almost near 50% now. When last I checked, non-fatal shootings was about a 40% clearance rate, which is very remarkable. Our recruitment efforts are continuing, as everyone knows. I continue to face manpower shortages. However, our most recent physical agility test saw a 20% increase from last year in the number of candidates that passed. So we are very hopeful that the next recruit class We'll be, if all goes well, certainly over 25. For reference, the past 3 or 4 recruit classes, we've been having classes of about 15 is what we've been able to muster. So very excited about that. Also in the next 2 weeks, our Teen Academy is returning for the first time in a long time. That involves around 20 teenagers. They're going to spend a week with us learning leadership skills. They'll be experiencing leadership development, team building, and demonstrations from all the units in the RPD. And again, taking whether they want to be a police officer or not is up to them. It's a great recruiting tool, but it's also a great tool, again, keeping our ties with the community. So that's what I have for now. I will turn it back over to the mayor.
Thank you, Chief. And also in public safety related, fire chiefs here, I just want to, again, this has been a very tough year for the Rochester Fire Department. As you know, we celebrated the life of Lieutenant John J.J. Joseph last week, so we continue to pray for the men and women of the Rochester Fire Department. As you see, the chief is wearing his badge. He has the black patch around it because we continue to mourn the loss of a great firefighter and great leader. He was also a great union leader. And the fact that JJ was on scene, I want to say almost 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks before he passed away, is a testament to the hard work of the men and women of the Rochester Fire Department. And they have been super busy this summer. Also, I want to point out that there are hundreds of activities and programs and resources for community members, helping them stay busy and productive, to keep people out of trouble. The busier a child is, the busier an adult is, the more likely they are to not engage in violent behavior. And our commissioner can speak to that. My advisor on violence prevention can speak to that. From our center programming to our workforce development, our swimming pools. We just opened a brand new multi-million-dollar nature center on Tuesday, the first time we've ever had a nature center in our community. There are so many ways that our residents can stay cool, they can have fun, they can stay out of trouble. We're even sponsoring concerts. Party in the Park is today. Rick Ross, the Boss, which is a city-sponsored event, is happening on Saturday. There are a multitude of things that are happening in our community. And we want people to go out and have a good time over the summer. No one can throw a party like me. No one can. I can throw a big, good party. Thousands of people. I'm known for throwing huge parties. But you know what happens after that party ends? When the party's over, go home. Go home. But what we've been seeing this whole summer is the party's over. And they want to keep the party going on the streets. And I don't mean in the afternoon. A good party in the afternoon is good. Block party during the day. But 2:30, 1:30, go home. That's the message that we're sending. And it'd be one thing, we wouldn't have to do some of the measures we're doing if people were throwing a good party and they kept it going, but it was fine and it was safe, but they're throwing a good party and then they're introducing guns into it or unnecessary brawls. And that we cannot stand for because violence has no place in our community. I want to give a shout out again to all of our folks that are involved in this, from our Pathways to Peace barbecues and neighborhood cleanups, our advanced peace activities, with the goal of helping people learn better ways to address disputes without turning to violence. That's our biggest challenge. A simple dispute, and it escalates to just mayhem. And that is what we are trying to stop. So although we are doing a lot, I remain committed to doing more, to doing whatever is needed to fully tackle gun violence and all violence, not just gun violence, all violence in Rochester. So with that, you all will have a press briefing that will talk about the particulars and cover the historic nature of the drop in crime that we've seen in our community, and also the steps that we're taking moving forward.